right, I quit teaching. No safety net. What was I thinking? Or was I? Look, and that's why teachers burn out. It's not the kids, it's ridiculous expectations. I had people I worked with that would lament like, oh man, I used to be able to do all these other like fun extracurricular things with the kids, and why can't I do that anymore? And it's, oh, because I've had to pick up all these other responsibilities. Okay guys, this is another one of those videos that I know is important to make because it's been really hard for me to make. So here are the 5 main reasons I quit teaching. Let's go. Point number 1, title card. The money problem. Look, the first reason I quit is the money. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make dollars and it doesn't make sense. No, I tried. Look, we would have meetings with our district leadership and administration, and they would complain about the cost of things and the price of things, how expensive everything's getting. And then they would increase the cost we pay for our own benefits because, you know, it's getting more expensive. But then they wouldn't touch our salary. So that means even before inflation, I was losing money every year because I was paying more and more for my insurance and other things. And if you add inflation on top of that, every year I continued to teach, I effectively was losing about 8 to 12% of my own salary each year. So like my buying power was decreasing every year. And I'm too good at math to stay at a job that does that. But you don't get into teaching to get rich, let's be honest. But you also don't get into teaching and expect to go backwards financially. That's insanity. All right, point number 2, the workload problem. Look, I like working hard. I'll go outside and sweat and get bit by bugs and build fences and fix cars, and I like working hard. I was just sitting here this morning writing my own software program, okay? So like, I'm not afraid of work. In fact, I might be sort of crazy in the amount of work I'm willing to accept. But the workload for teaching, people outside of education have no clue. Most teachers already work long hours, but in my situation, it wasn't even close to normal. I had 5 different 1-hour long classes to prepare for every single day. So it's like 5 hours of presentations. I had no shared setup time, meaning like I didn't teach the same class twice. So if I wanted to set up a lab for biology, I would have to set it up like in the 3 minutes between classes or eat into lab time setting stuff up with the students. It was a lot. It was crazy the amount of time I didn't have to set stuff up. Most best practices have a teacher teaching 2, maybe 3 different classes in total outside of elementary. Elementary teachers, I can't even express the amount of work you guys do. It's crazy, so thank you. So I had 5 different classes to prepare for, and I was provided with 1 curriculum for one of those classes. Sort of. So I basically was making it up. Granted, I'm highly qualified to make it up. It just takes a lot of time, and time was the one thing I was running against. Okay, so that's not being a teacher. That's being a teacher, a curriculum designer, a lab tech, an admin, a paraprofessional, a secretary, all rolled into one ever decreasing paycheck. Look, and that's why teachers burn out. It's not the kids, it's ridiculous expectations. I had people I worked with that would lament like, oh man, I used to be able to do all these other like fun extracurricular things with the kids, and why can't I do that anymore? And it's, oh, because I've had to pick up all these other responsibilities. And it just takes some of the soul like out of the school and the education and the other things besides just like learning that actually matter. Okay, so point 3, title card. The system problem. Look, the system itself, from the teaching side, licensing perspectives set by the state and requirements, they shift frequently. State mandates forcing you, this happened in elementary. There's a state mandate to pick a curriculum that had these certain qualifications, but only 2 of the curriculums available had that, and 1 wasn't even complete. So like they had 1 option. They were like basically required to pick 1 option, and that's crazy. That's not competition. That's not free market economy. That's not finding the best thing. That's like pick the one that for some reason the lawmakers really wanted to happen. Look, it's not about choice. It's about control. And if you end up teaching in a way that just checks boxes for the state. It doesn't actually serve the students. And when you try to push back, you're the problem. So look, I realize the system doesn't care about teaching. It doesn't care really about learning. It says it does, but if we look at the numbers and if we look at, I like to think of a budget as a declaration of values, right? If you look at my household budget, the things I value, those are at the top of the budget. They're the things I budget for. And when the school says they value this and we look at their budget and they're putting nothing into the thing they say they value, they don't actually value that. I realized I could do more to help the system from outside the system than I could from within it. All right, title card 4. Point 4. The myths. All right. Look, let's kill a few myths before we get into them in the comments. Look, okay, we'll go through 3 big ones. Myth 1, teachers get the summers off. No. I've spent every summer working a second job and or getting additional certifications and licensures, which I paid for out of pocket. So like that's the opposite of work. I'm losing money when I do that. I don't know a single teacher who doesn't work a second job and or have a partner that also works a full-time job and or another job. Myth 2, if you quit, you're giving up on the kids. Wrong. Look, the system has given up on the kids. Leaving teaching doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you someone who refuses to be exploited. And myth 3, teaching is stable. It used to be. Teaching used to be stable. My aunt and uncle who were teachers in small town Michigan for full term career. I don't know if it was 30 years, 35 years, 40. Like they were teachers forever. And what they put in and what they got out are radically different from my choices, what I'm able to do. Look, so point 5, boom, why I really left. I couldn't fix the system from within it. I tried, I showed up every day, but at some point I realized you can't outwork a broken system. So I made the hardest decision I ever have, and that was to step out of the classroom. With the twist that I'm not giving up. I realized I could do more to help students, to support education, and to fight for the causes I believe in from outside the system. And so that's why I left. I didn't run away. I chose to fight in a different way. And listen, while I was leaving teaching, I wasn't just walking away from a job. I was at the lowest point in my life, rock bottom. And not only was I like at the rock bottom, I had a pickaxe and I was like Minecraft in my rock bottom trying to get even deeper. Look, but at some point I realized there's only 5 things I needed to do to make my life better. I needed to make time to do the things that had to be done. I needed to make space to have the space to do those things. I needed to make do with what I had at the time in the moment, just in time learning. I didn't need to wait for things to change. I needed to make things change. I needed to make peace with where I was at. And I needed to make money so I didn't starve to death. That's 5 things. If you want the whole playbook, it's literally a book. I have it down linked below. I wrote it for you. I wrote it for me. Anyone going through a time like that, if it helps one person, it is totally worth it. All right, so that's the unfiltered truth about why I quit teaching. If you're a teacher right now, drop a comment below. Tell me the number 1 reason you feel like quitting or the number 1 reason you're staying. When I stayed, I would just focus on one student. Like, okay, here we go, 5th hour. I'm going to focus on one student. And if I can make the day better for that one student, my whole hour will have been worth it. And so that helps. If you're staying in teaching, one piece of advice that I wish I'd gotten when I was teaching is close your door and teach. Just close your door and teach, right? There's things we can control. There's things we can't control. Focus on controlling the things you can in your classroom. So, it's okay. Close your door and teach. If you made it this far, check out the video over here where I break down the top careers to transition to after teaching if you're burned out. This one's the real options. And next to it, I'll have the ones that didn't work. I tried both. One worked, one didn't. So check out what actually worked. And like the video, subscribe, comment below. Share this with anyone who would appreciate it. All right. Phoenix, are you sleeping? You touch? Up, up, up. She's asleep. All right. Oh, there she is. All right, touch. Come on. Doop. Okay, good dog. All right, I'll see you guys later.